Most people, especially main characters in books, comics, movies, video games, they all think they're doing the right thing. But you know what they say. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So let's talk about some people who are absolutely going to hell while they follow a neat little path of the best intentions. So our usual ground rules. I'll be focusing on Scott from multiple universes, but really Scott as a whole rather than breaking them down individually. There's a mountain of content from 616 alone, but if you know Marvel, you know nobody's the good guy in Ultimate, so that's gonna be rough. Not a comprehensive detailing of his life, but let's take a look. Scott Summers is the son of Christopher and Catherine Ann Summers, and brother to Alex, who would later become Havoc. Christopher was a test pilot in the Air Force and clearly makes enough money to own a private jet. On the return from a family vacation, they were attacked by the Shi'ar. Why? No idea. Maybe they were looking for that apple from the End Zone experiment. Now, as someone who wanted for a long time to become a pilot, I have to point out this crashing plane had only one parachute. One. Family of 4, 2 kids, only one parachute. This is why people should have to have a license to have children. Clearly, Christopher has no regard for his family. Guarantee that parachute was just for him if shit went sideways. Anyway, Catherine gave that one parachute to Scott and pushed him and Alex out of the plane. Genius. Their parachute caught on fire, and Scott used his laser face to slow their descent and ultimately save their lives. In the process, he hit his head and damaged the part of his brain that let him control his powers. In the hospital, they were both diagnosed with traumatic amnesia and looked over by a geneticist who was really just Nathaniel Essex, also known as Mr. Sinister. Yeah, this guy. Keep an eye on him if you can, he's a living shell game. He splits the brothers up because he likes Scott's vibes or something. Scott wakes up in the hospital, blows the roof off said hospital with his laser face, and then gets knocked out for a year. When he wakes up, he's in the State Home for Foundlings in Nebraska. Nebraska has one of the lowest population densities in the US. There are more kids in an average kindergarten class than Nebraska has in an entire square mile. Perfect place to hide foundlings from the Mandalorians. At the orphanage, he's experimented on by the owner, Mr. Milbury, or should I say Mr. Sinister. In addition to the tests, he also has to deal with a bully, his roommate Lefty, who is also Mr. Sinister. After a while, he starts getting headaches and is sent to a specialist who is, oh look, it's Mr. Sinister, who ends up giving him his signature ruby glasses. Not long after this, his powers start going out of control. He causes and subsequently solves a collapsing crane that almost kills a crowd of people. Even though they all live, the sight of red makes them think that he too is an apple and they form an angry mob. After this, he bails out and becomes a train hobo. I'm going to stop there because this is where things start to go sideways for him and eventually leads him to Charles Xavier, where things go sideways again and now he's upside down. Soon after becoming a train hobo, Scott teamed up with Jack Winters, aka Jack of Diamonds, a man who... oh, you get it. He also has telepathy, like every third X-Men character, hero or otherwise, which he used to make Scott join him. I'm starting to think I know why Scott is fucked up. Early on in his career as a member of the X-Men, Beast from the future came to stop him from committing a crime in the future, the murder of Charles Xavier. Everyone on his team turned on him, and Wolverine considered killing him to stop future Scott. Like, at this point, I'm thinking he had an excuse. It's a known fact of X-Men and related media that Jean Grey is basically the living dead girl. The first time she dies is in a volcano, which is pretty metal. What isn't metal is that Scott's response to his girlfriend going out like that was, And I quote, "I wish I had some grief to share. I mourned for Hank, but for Jean, there's nothing there." Yikes. And he basically jumps into it with Colleen Wing so fast that you'd think his dick knew how to fastball special by itself. He finds out that Jean is still alive and teaches Colleen the fastball by yeeting her before the ink on Jean's name is even dry on the panel. He proposes to her, and she dies in another fireball. You'd think this would be a Tuesday for him by now, but whatever. Less than 10 issues of the comic later, he's in it with a girl in Florida. Not long after, Scott's in Alaska with his grandparents at a family reunion, and he meets Madeline Pryor, who he becomes obsessed with because she looks just like Jean. Absolute scumbag. So, remember Mr. Sinister? Don't worry, he's not Madeline. But he did clone Jean and program the clone to fall in love with Scott. They get married for obvious reasons, and they had a baby literally according to plan. And since having Jean back for I don't know, is this the 6th time? Since that isn't good enough, he cheats on her with his therapist, Emma Frost. But psychically, so it's totally okay because they never had physical sex. I would like to point out that Jean caught them in bed together with Emma in a classic Phoenix outfit, which, kinky, but also don't cheat on your all-powerful psychic wife. He also gets in some time with like 3 other chicks, including Storm, in between marriages to Jean, while she's in various stages of death or on fire. And sometimes he hits up the fire for some action too. Scott created the X-Force. Now, say what you want about this crew, but they are all straight up killers. And Scott was in charge. He really starts to tilt into the fascism here. As an aside, why are so many men in Marvel just not cool? He sets up the squad to kill Cable. Remember his son with Madeline? The one he just bailed on to marry his dead/alive/dead/alive wife? That is Cable. Father of the Year, right? He also takes on X-23, the traumatized teenage clone of Wolverine, and fosters that murderous programming that was drilled into her since she was a baby. He also kinda had a thing for her at one point, and yikes on bikes. Scott did a lot of extrajudicial things with the X-Force. And that's really not great, but I would say the worst thing he did was when he infected the Skrulls with the Legacy virus, en masse. Biological warfare is a war crime, and I refuse to be told that the Geneva Convention isn't in the Marvel Universe because World War II and related events happened. You know which ones I mean. I could talk about Death of X and that whole story, but that wasn't actually Scott, that was Emma Frost making a twisted projection of him, so that's a bit of a moot point. Scott Summers has a long history in the comics, and is good or bad depending on the arc, the writer, and the social climate, much like any other character. This has just been a quick look at what Scott has done in his various runs in the comic. Hey, if you like this episode and our other content, there's even more to get at our Patreon, like scripts, behind-the-scenes photos and videos, and blooper reels. And if you look below this video, you can help us battle the main supervillain of all comics and movies, the Apple. If that subscribe button is red, slap it to turn it gray. We can defeat the Apple if we all band together. And as usual, here's my cat, who is just done with everyone.